Let's gather back in. I have an important announcement for all of you who are concerned about your parking. That you may have parked in some place that didn't quite look like it was the right place. You're fine. We have negotiated with the police here, and they are not going to give you tickets. If you do get a ticket from campus security, if you get one from the FBI, it's your own problem. But if you get one from campus security, then you can call them and say, I was with the Soil Health Summit, and they will whip it. So let's move back into place, please. Thank you for last grabbing the last couple. All right, so I'd like to turn it back over to Kent Sober for the farmer panel.
Thank you, Jerry. Next we have our farmer panel, and it's my honor to introduce our three panelists. First is Jerry Ackerman and his wife Nancy, who both grew up farming. Gradually, they took over their family's land until they reached their current 1,200 acres near Lakefield, Minnesota. They have equal parts of alfalfa, corn, and soybeans. Although they have grown the same crops for most of their lives, they have continuously tried different techniques. Their primary goal is to increase revenue, which they know correlates with implementing practices that improve soil health. We also have Breitkreutz, farmer and soil health expert, who's president-elect of the Minnesota State Cattlemen's Association and operates Stoney Creek Farm near Redwood Falls, Minnesota with his wife Dawn. Their regenerative operation includes a commercial cow-calf cattle operation with managed intensive rotational grazing, custom cattle feeding, and no-till cropping, as well as extensive use of cover crops. The farm has received numerous awards over the years for their conservation efforts. And our third panelist is Tiffany, who has always been interested in agriculture and farming. When he was 8 years old, living on his parents' farm, he got a loan to buy cattle. Wow. And 3 years later, he started renting land. Good grief. You were just a little guy. He gradually acquired more land, which ultimately resulted in the 2,000 acres he farms today. When making agricultural decisions, Bruce thinks of how he can harvest the sunshine and put it back into a farm that people can use. So you can welcome our three panelists up to the front here. Right now, we'll keep going. Bruce, you want to go first? Okay.
Thanks for deciding. I thought we were going to do rock, paper, scissors.
I'll get your slides up here. Actually, I thought we had your arm
All right, we're on. Well, thanks. It's really a pleasure to be here and see a room full of people. To start out with, I'm going to give credit to my son Matthew, who did the PowerPoint for me. We've kind of adapted a couple of different talks together, and he whipped this together for me yesterday. And there's probably more slides in here than I'm going to have time to really dwell on. So what I'm going to do is click through some of them fairly fast, and then if you've got questions about them later, we can maybe answer on that. But I want to accomplish several things here. One, Kathy Dooley said it perfectly, that none of us have always farmed the way that we farm now. And I think that's an important point, that I'm at a different place in my farming operation than I was when I was starting. I'm at a different place in my evolution from bollwork plowing to wherever the heck we're going. And I think each one of us is on a different journey, and each one of us has a different set of tools to work with. And I think it's important think about what we're trying to accomplish. What is the goal? We're all harvesting sunshine, and what's the best way to do that? And so for my operation, we've chosen to use some practices that we have now, and it's totally different from when I got out of college, like totally different. And it will probably be very much different 5 years from now. What we're doing now seems to be working for us. But to describe the operation from the casual observer, it looks like a typical corn and soybean farm. We raise corn, soybeans for seed, and that's a very important thing to remember in our operation. Every soybean we sell is for seed, and it's a pretty weird operation because we're typically not done planting until the last week of June or maybe even the first week of July. And then we also raise sweet corn for a local canning company, and there's early planted sweet corn and there's late planted sweet corn. So there's some opportunities, but there's also some challenges that we needed to deal with because some of our really late planted soybeans, we aren't out there able to plant until we get the seed, and that shows up sometimes as late as the end of June. Same with the late planted sweet corn. There's a challenge there. What do you do with that field while you're waiting for your turn to plant? Or some of our soybeans are double zero maturities, so they are really, really hard to harvest. What are we going to do with the rest of that season? How are we going to capture that sunlight? What are we going to do with that field? And so our operation is different from that respect than most of yours, but hopefully there's something here you can learn. But what really got us thinking about it, what we were doing was evaluating. We're out there planting in 2012, and this is what we're seeing. And I recall, this was, Matthew was planting beans that day. I was losing corn that had, it was probably 3 or 4 inches high, and we lost corn stand. And this went on for days, having to have the headlights, see people driving down the highway with their headlights on. That's not a good deal. That's not one of our, you've all seen this is not one of our road ditches, but we've seen this all over the place. This is one of my neighbor's fields. He had baled the bean straw, and that was middle of April. Not a pretty sight. So there's some things that we have to do just because to prevent stuff like this. And we got thinking about our sweet corn. That late planted sweet corn is a bit of a challenge. What do you do with the ground? Traditionally, over the years, people would either let the weeds grow, try to knock them down, and get that corn planted, but it's really hard to knock down a land squirter that's 2 feet tall. Or what do you do? So if you work it 2 or 3 times and keep the weeds down, that's one way to do it. But then as soon as you get a rain, you end up with a fair amount of erosion and compaction. All of you understand that, I think. And so what Matthew and I thought, what if we plant oats out there as soon as we can in the spring? What if we planted as soon as we could possibly get out there, get an oat crop going that we're going to terminate prior to planting either these late planted beans or the late planted sweet corn. So this is what the one field, those germinating sweet corn plants coming up on July 1st. There were a lot of things went wrong with that crop. The planting date got pushed back because of rain. We got excessive rainfall in there. I think there was like 10 inches of rain. Yeah. And it was a mess. There was standing water out there, and we didn't know what we were doing. We couldn't get out there with a ground rig to spray it, to terminate it. We had oats that was actually headed, and we weren't quite sure what we were going to do with that. So we borrowed a sulfur tool and ran around out there to knock it down enough because we weren't confident that we could plant in it and get that sweet corn up and going. But what went right about it was the final yield. All things considered, it looked like a train wreck until we got a final yield, which is not a record setter, but it was a whole lot better than what we thought we were gonna get, which has got us to thinking that there's more and more possibilities here. Let's try to fine tune this, let's try to weatherproof our operation. And so we instead of using the oats, we thought, well, what if we planted a cover crop after the sweet corn? And something like the winter wheat might apply, and it's not quite as aggressive as rye. And so Matthew happened to be going back to sweet corn after he was following sweet corn. And this is what he ended up with 1 year. So this is what went right, and this is what went wrong. The yield was a little bit better out there, and we were able to terminate it on time. And the one thing that sticks out about this is that that 150 pounds of nitrogen, to me that seems high, and we erred, I think, a little bit on the high side because we knew there would be tie-up in all of that residue and straw. So there's probably about 30 extra pounds in the end that we applied there. You know, and with future experimentation, I'm not sure where we need that number to be. The first year that I planted cover crops after an early sweet corn field was this one. And we had a demonstration out there. What do you do? Okay, after sweet corn harvest, you've got truck wheel tracks, you've got residue. What are we going to do with that? And we had a field day demonstration with 2 different kinds of sulfur tools and 1 sunflower vertical tillage tool. And so we have the seed spread with about 100 pounds of potash. And then different operators wanted to see these machines work, and so people worked with the dealership personnel and worked that stuff in. And I ended up choosing the sunflower tool because we had a better stand after that tool. So that's what I ended up with there. But that's what it looked like on October 13th. Pretty nice stand, and that was a mixture of 7/10 of a bushel of oats and 7/10 of a bushel of rye. That's what it looked like in the spring. Now, keep in mind that our late planted soybeans, and that we knew this field was going to get planted kind of late. And that's what it looked like at termination time. I don't think the 24 to 30 inches was accurate. I think it was probably more like 18 to 20 inches that day when I terminated. And that's what it looked like 18 days later. What I learned with that rye, that straw is really resilient. That stuff is like wire. It's, we weren't confident that we could plant into it. And so I ran the sunflower tool across it, and that got really rough. And if you look on the left side, there's two different kinds of cover there. My neighbor had a regular oat field planted there, and then I had a 30-foot border of rye that I had to leave between our field and the oats. And so that rye continued to grow, and that stuff would impress the daylights out of me. But what I learned from that experiment was you got to be careful with the rye. That stuff can get away from you, and it's pretty damn aggressive. Same story the next year. This is the oats and rye, and I was a little disappointed. We were out there tiling that day, and I was a little disappointed that that stuff was only about, I don't know, it's about 8 to 10 inches tall. I was expecting it to be taller. I digging a connection hole, and this was an aha moment for me. I'm down there basically 6 weeks after this stuff was seeded, and I'm finding roots down there 39 inches deep. I thought, right there, I was disappointed with this above ground growth, but it's what's going on beneath the surface, and I think that's where this is really going to pay off for me. I would have been curious to go out there in the spring and measure. If we could find, never did it, didn't dig a hole, but I should have, to find out how deep did those guys actually go, and I'm assuming that they grew all winter long. That's what it looked like at termination time. And again, before planting. Once again, I found out that that's rye is so darn resilient. You get these big old root balls like that. And it got us thinking about, why are we trying to tear this up? Why are we trying to uproot this and create those root balls? So we have evolved our operation over the years. So here we are, in fields where we didn't have a chance to do a fall cover crop. What if we plant the oats real early and then go out there and terminate it and plant into the field before we work it up? And that's what that is. So that would have been about a bushel of oats planted out there, just spread on the surface and worked in with a field cultivator. This would be a field of beans planted after sweet corn. So this field had oats and rye, and then I planted into it green, and then I sprayed, killed the cover crop after it was planted. Now, I will tell you this, the wildlife just loved this field. It absolutely loved this field to the point where I was finding antlers all over the place, including one big antler stuck into the side of my tire. It was cool. But anyway, so the tools that we have today are much more impressive than the tools that we had when I got out of college, much more impressive than we had even 5 years ago. And how do we know if we're making any progress? If you're trying to generate dollars per acre, where are you making those dollars and where are you not? Where are you losing money? What are you doing? What are each one of these practices? How is that returning to you? And so with the analytics that we have now, this is climate field view, and I wish I could do this live on the iPad, but this particular field is a 150-acre field. There's 15 soil types in it, and you can hover around each soil type, and it'll tell you exactly what's going on there. And there were actually 4 different varieties of beans in this field as well. But there was, out of the 150 acres, there was only 50 acres that had a cover crop on it. And there were 2 of those varieties that were split between cover crop and not cover crop. And so, without getting into all the details, because we can't do justice to it with one slide, but the one particular variety, there was an 8.83 bushel yield difference across that variety in that field. And I would have to say in that variety, there could have been 10 different soil types. And you can also look at each one of these soil types and take this best stored in loam, 3 to 6% slope. We had 53 bushel yield with the cover crop, and the same thing. The one without the cover crop was 47.35. The next one without the cover crop is the best loam. There's 61.9 bushel yield and only a 58.98 with the cover crop. Now, what's the story there? I'll bet you there's a lot more questions to answer that, but not every soil type reacted the same way. And I would say if you dig deeper into this, you'd have to ask more questions. So how's that going to pay off? In the end, that 8.83 bushel yield advantage and the difference in cost on our treatments, if we would have worked it twice, or if we would have just used one tillage pass with more herbicide, or doing what we did, we spent less money to get higher yield. I mean, it's pretty hard to argue with that. Where we're headed, strip till, we've got about 1,200 acres that got strips on it this past fall, and not knowing what we were doing, not wanting to spend $500,000 on strip till, we bought a used machine that seems to be working pretty well. That's what some of the strips look like. We're doing our cover crops now, pulling a little air cart behind the sunflower tool. And these other two are having cover crops blown on the standing corn. A little more of the building the different strips. And then having grandkids, it kind of puts things in perspective, doesn't it? I was that age once. Someday they're going to be my age. I've been monkeying around out on that farm. I've put in 50 crops. I'd like to say that I'm going to put in another 30. Who the heck knows? But one thing that I do know, if we aren't continuously learning, if we aren't continuously practicing and assessing, my grandkids or their grandkids won't have the same opportunities that I've had. And when I make decisions on my farm, I think with the people before me that left resources for me and the people after me, we may be proud of the decisions that I've made. And I think about that a lot. And I think that's why our operation has changed so much, because it's not just what's put in money in your pocket today counts. I think you have to look at the bigger picture. I've got a lot more stuff up here in case anybody has questions. Grant, you want to go next?
So as Ken's getting this loaded up, my wife and I and our daughter, and now son-in-law, we farm up the river here a little ways by Redwood Falls, Minnesota, over on the bluffs of the Minnesota River Valley. We've always had what, like Bruce McNair would say, is marginal soils. We're on some of the lighter soils in our area. We are 100% no-till. We've been cover cropping since before they were called cover crops. And we've taken a long, hard, and sometimes expensive journey on this trip to get where we are. So it gives us great pleasure to do these things so that you guys don't have to suffer through what we went through and the expense. So we're known as Stoney Creek Farm. When we started learning about soil health, it started with our livestock operation. We were always short on grass, constantly looking for enough feed to feed our cattle. And it's like, why don't we have enough grass? There's guys out there that do, so let's figure this out. So we entered into an NRCS contract. We immediately doubled the production on our land. And being this type of guy I am, I was like, okay, we doubled it once, let's double it again, there's gotta be a way. So I looked at holistic management, and we started moving our cattle under a high intensity grazing system. As we did this, we noticed the soils were changing in our pastures. We've got a lot of native pastures along the bluffs and in the valleys of the river that all of a sudden we could graze through these swamps where we could never get cows through before. It's like, why is this happening? How can it possibly be? It wasn't just because it was a dry year. It was because we were infiltrating the water where we needed to go. This particular picture you're looking at here is why managed grazing. This is a 47-acre piece of ground that's native prairie. It's never had a plow through it. It doesn't have a tree on it. And when Don and I took over from my mom and dad, this would grow 6 to 8 inch grass if you didn't put a cow on it all year. It's just what we did. We had overgrazed it, set stocked it for so long that that's what it ended up being. This is what we go into now. Obviously, this is later in the season where we got some seed heads there, but it doesn't matter to us because we're only taking a percentage of this. We're also producing this type of grass without fertilizer herbicide. We use the fertilizer strategy to spray it every single year. And like Dawn says, in August and September, she'd go cut Christmas trees, which are bull thistles. So we don't do that anymore. But so this native pasture is where we started learning this about soil health. And through our grazing program, through rest and recovery in the soil, we took this pasture from 3 species of grass over 25 species of grass. The last time that we had somebody out there that knows way more than I do about it, there's over 40 plus different species out there now, which included forks and everything, and we did not seed a thing. Latent seed bank is there, believe it or not. All you have to do is give it an opportunity to express itself, which is rest and recovery times. This field here, we collected crop insurance on this about 7 out of 10 years. It's right on the bluff of the river. You can see in the top part of that picture, that's actually dropping down into the valley there. High percentage sand. It's like, why are we farming this? We gave up on it. We planted wheat and we underseeded it with alfalfa one year. And as I was learning what we were doing on our native pastures, it's like, we might as well just quit paying this and see if we can increase our pasture land. So we managed this particular piece of ground by watching the cows and watching the species that we wanted to improve out there and to come out there. Once again, the latent seed bank was there. This was just seeded alfalfa. There was never any brome seeded out here or any of the other grasses that we got out here. We developed this stand of grass, and those are mature cows out there, through rest and recovery, through management of the cattle. This piece of ground now is one of our highest producing pieces of ground. It'll produce the most beef we can possibly produce anywhere on the farm as what we call now a native pasture. It's never been fertilized, it's never been sprayed with herbicides, and some of my neighbors that are here know we beat this thing to death when we're in trouble, because this is where we go as a sacrifice paddock when we're in weather conditions that we have to sacrifice them. This is something that I hear all the time. Like we said, I'm on the Cattlemen's board. Why are we calving in February and March? We started slowly moving our calving dates back into April, and the good Lord blessed us with a storm that wiped out all of our cattle facilities, so we went to the end of April. And we do not regret it a bit. We reduced our labor to less than 10% of what we were doing calving this time of the year, and it's amazing those cows can do what they're supposed to do all by themselves. This is just some of the results from our changes in our cattle operation. The labor savings is huge, feed savings. The one thing that we noticed as we were improving our soil health is that our livestock health improved. Our veterinary costs basically dropped to 10% of what they used to be when we did everything fighting Mother Nature. Obviously decreased death loss, we increased the grass production, and we eliminated that fertilizer chemical application. Going across the native pasture, that's all rocks, and you never know what you get out there. It was never any fun. The other part we did, as Tom mentioned earlier today, is water quality in this state is a huge deal. We managed to fix all our eroded riparian areas under creek banks until the neighbor's water came this year, but it's still better than what I had. So Bruce showed a picture of this. Why? Why do we see this all the time? Where we farm, we're in the heart of sugar beet country. We're 14 miles south of the largest sugar beet co-op in this state. There's reasons they do what they do to try to grow those beets, but they're leaving absolutely no cover. So with what we learned in the grazing part of our operation, how we basically quadrupled our production there, reduced our inputs, it's like, why aren't we doing this on our farmland? So we started taking steps forward, and these are posted right here beside me. Keep the soil covered, minimize disturbance, increase crop diversity, living roots in the soil all the time. And obviously with our cows, we got the ability to integrate livestock. So this is what we basically took our farm from. The bottom right would have been our farm at one point in time. The top left is ours. You can see the aggregation we got there. You can see that that's just gonna hold more water. It's gonna allow more water to go in. And the neighbors, he allows me to pick on him, so I just go across the fence and get his. It's taking the same time. I mean, you can see we got moisture in ours, he's got nothing in his. There's many advantages to what we're doing. We've been no-tilling since 1998 on soybean production. For the last, I believe it's 8 or 9 years, we've been 100% no-till on all crops. Corn was the last crop that we changed to no-till. But this is what it's about. It's about soil health. It's about water infiltration ability. This picture I took this spring in May when we were still what I would consider dry compared to where we ended up. My rye cover crop on the right, my neighbor's got his corn planted. This was the most beautiful 1.3 inches of rain we had all year. It came over 3¼ hours, and we were dry before this. And he's got water standing. Can't infiltrate the water. There's a tile line that runs right underneath that water. So the tillage is reducing the ability of the water to infiltrate where we're getting it in the ground where we need it. Bruce showed this. Depths of cover crops. Cover crops need to be picked for the resource concerns you want to fix. And at the same time, all cover crops should be picked to make you more profitable. A cover crop that's used should pay a dividend back one way or the other. This is a plot that I put in because we were having a field day on our farm this particular year. We planted 3 10-inch rows of different cover crop seeds that we had in the shed. You can see the difference there, 10 to 17 inches deep. The one thing is Grant's not real smart, doesn't write everything down he should, doesn't think back long enough. Where I dug this soil pit is where the county rebladed the road 10 years previous to this. They took our topsoil off. They gave us a little bit back. We made the commitment, I know enough about no-till and cover crops at that time that I was not gonna run a ripper through it. The county ran a ripper through it for me. We cover crop this every single year, grew a cash crop after the cover crop, and no-tilled it. We built 17 inches of black topsoil back on top of that clay. As we were digging this soil pit, and I'm thinking this is dumb, but I'm digging the pit already, so we're gonna do this. And Alan Williams showed up at our farm to look at this. As we were walking through the soil pit, we found gravel. We all know what gravel looks like, brown colored, that we had changed back into black topsoil. There's a whole vein of that in there. So we can fix everything we've done in the history of agriculture. Just a little bit about what we do on our farm. We keep 3 crops at least in our rotation. If you ask me what my rotation is, I now say we have no rotation. We used to be corn, soybeans, wheat. We no longer do that. We grow a lot of winter cereal grains for cover crops, for feed. We look at what we can make the most profit per acre on. And once we started looking at profit per acre instead of yield and production is when we changed our farm around. There's a lot of times when we're chasing that big bushel yield, we weren't getting back what we needed. So this is a cover crop after a wheat harvest. This would happen to be a spring wheat harvest. There's 9 species out there. We grew more biomass, more tonnage than the wheat crop produced after the wheat crop. We graze this with our cattle, also managed grazing out on all of our fields. Everything we do is managed grazing, so we obviously graze this in the fall of the year. We will set up 2 to 3 days, sometimes 5-day strips out here just because we're busy with harvest like everybody else, but it's still managed grazing to maximize the cover. And we'll only take 50% of this off and leave 50% for cover. In that cover crop that you saw, we put in species that come back green in the spring. This is something that years ago, I'm pretty sure Cody and I were somewhere and somebody told me, you can't do this, you can't plant corn green. Yeah, you can, I'm gonna figure it out. So when you look at this picture, it looks like cereal rye or trick, you know, up there. It is, that's what you're seeing. But underneath that story of cereal grains, we've got hairy vetch in there, very thick. We've got clovers in there. We've got some brassicas that overwinter that are helping us with our carbon to nitrogen ratio so we grow corn. We do put a little extra in on this particular field. It got very late. I think this is probably the 28th of May. Planting corn, not ideal, but we're waiting for our soil temps. That's one of the things that we've learned is that we wait for our soil temp to be 58 degrees and rising. This is what corn looks like emerging through that. It looks like we ran a chopper or something across there. That's just the way the crop got bent over and cut by the planting discs. We run very limited row cleaners. Nothing's changed on the planter except for one spike closing wheel in the rear. Just sharp discs are the key to it and enough down pressure to make it work. This is the one thing that we never expected was going to happen to us. As part of the benefits of doing what we do, we don't have a day off farming anymore unless it is physically raining. We can go into our fields hours after rain and do what we need to do. This is applying second shot of nitrogen on corn. We had 4/10 of an inch of rain in the morning while I was doing chores feeding cattle. Call the co-op, I want a fertilizer spreader. Yeah, you and everybody else wants a fertilizer spreader. It's not gonna sit in your shed, we got a 100% chance of rain tonight. I said, I want a fertilizer spreader, we're spreading. We spread all day. I spread all my land, all my neighbors' land, and they had the tender trucks to provide us service instead of us having to run and get it. About middle of the afternoon, the co-op saw that we had been running all day. They went right beside my neighbor with a big 90-foot boom and tried spraying. It did not work. Being that we can get this water in the ground where it needs to be, and we've got structure in our soil, we can do a lot of things that nobody else can. And like I say, we're a livestock operation. We still spread a lot of manure. All my buddies call me, what are you doing? Oh, I'm spreading manure. A little while later, I get a call, you SOB. But this is something that Dawn and I struggled with the whole time, was how do we monitor soil health? 20 plus years ago, a soil agronomist told me as long as I didn't sell the cows, I never needed to take a soil test. So we've got very little soil test data on our farm. We've always produced a very good crop on our farm, just doing it kind of shooting by the seat of my pants. But this is the one thing that Dawn and I saw that we could monitor and tell that we were doing good things to our soil as earthworm activity. Plant corn to 30,000 population and only opening up that seed trench this wide, checking plants put that far apart, will kill 8 to 12 worms in that seed trench. That's how high our earthworm populations have gotten. This past summer, we had the opportunity to have some people at our farm that could explain this to us and test it for us. In our pasture lands, we have 850,000 earthworms per cubic foot of soil, or per acre, excuse me, per acre. Cubic foot of soil height, figure it out. And in our tillable land, we're over 1 million earthworms per acre. Those earthworms do a lot of nutrient cycling for us. Earthworms at that population will bring up 1,500 pounds of raw, usable calcium for our corn crop. We used to lime every year. We don't lime anymore. Our soil tests that we're doing now are changing. We started interseeding a long time ago. We still do that if the good Lord lets us. We just took a drill, spent the Sunday afternoon 2 air inches, took 2 pallets worth of parts off, and made it work. Like I said before, this is one of those intangible benefits of what we're doing. This is silage chopping in 2017. We had 4.8 inches of rain the night before this was taken. My neighbor called and he says, we got to chop silage. I said, Ryan, we might have soil structure, but I don't think we got it. We chopped like this for a day and a half. When that water reseeded, we went right in there with a no-till drill and seeded cereal rye in there without having to cover up a track. This is how we plant our soybeans, plant them green. The thing that we started looking at is the net profit per acre. This actually had 2 grazings of cattle across it first, which saved a lot of calves last spring in the miserable weather we were in, and we still produced a very respectable bean crop. This is our fall tillage pass. If we didn't have a cover crop put in during the growing season, we put one in immediately following the combine. This is something that is huge, especially the later in the year you get. Once you get past August 1st, the quicker you can follow the combine, the more growth you get. And a day or 2 makes a huge difference. And this year, it made the difference between getting it done and not getting it done. Diversity is a good thing. This is something that we worked with Kent on in the pasture project. We had this piece of ground, this was the last piece of ground that when some of our input suppliers were saying you should run your inline ripper 20 inches deep and then move over the next year, run it 15 inches over, run it 20 inches deep. Now Grant finally had a big enough tractor to do it, so we did it and we destroyed this. Kent and Alan happened to come along with this program. We wanted to see how fast we could fix our worst piece of ground. So we took oats, peas, and barley off of this for forage crop for the cows, and we planted 14 species cover crop up here. This is what it looks like after 2 frosts. It was so thick, Kent and I could not crawl through it. We had to mow it with a mower, and then we grazed it with cattle. We bring our calves home and wean them out here. A calf has been taught by its mother this whole time to graze. It knows how to graze. Why do we put it on a strange bunk and strange water system? So we have gone to absolutely 0 pulls and 0 treats since we weaned this way. The calf performance is unbelievable. Ian Michelinus told me this a long time ago through one of his trainings, if you build it, they will come, and holy God, do they come. We used to have when I was a kid, we maybe had 80 to 100 deer on our farm, and until about 7 or 8 years ago, we only had 7 or 8 deer. Now we have 80 to 120 deer on our farm again. The birds, the wildlife, it's just unbelievable what we get back when we fix our soil health. This has become one of my missions, is education. This group of students comes out from the University of Minnesota every year in May when we're the busiest we can possibly be, and we stop everything to take time with them. There's a soils class. These kids are out there with Nick Gillespie, their instructor, and they're actually traveling in the state of Minnesota, and they're looking at farm fields that we as farmers have farmed forever, and they go out to these fields and it says on their map that there is a soil type on their map, and they go on the hill, that soil type is not there. We have eroded that soil type to the bottom of the hill. When they come to our farm, these poor kids get tortured by Nick for 9 days, and they get to our farm, they're beat up, wore out. They've seen native prairie that's got beautiful infiltration rates, that's got aggregation, and he says, you will eventually see a farm that grows corn and soybeans in these soils. If you look real close in the back of that picture on top of the hill, there's kids up there. They couldn't find the soil type, but what they did find was 8 inches of black soil that we've rebuilt on the top of that hill that used to be all sand and clay. It used to be yellow as can be. We promote education on this. Our farm hosts these soil health academies. This will be the second one. You can talk to me later about that if you're interested. Thank you.
Are we still on? I guess we are. While he's getting that set up, I'll tell you a little bit about our operation. I'm here with my wife Nancy. We live down in the southwestern corner of Minnesota, at Lakefield, Minnesota, right along I-90. Our ground is on both sides of Interstate 90 if you ever go down there, so we're there. We're farming about 1,200 acres, and as I said earlier, we've got corn, soybeans, and alfalfa as a cash crop. After listening to Grant, I might have to go buy cattle, but I'm sure Nancy would have me committed somewhere with all of it. But I'm going to talk to you about the economics of strip till and no-till. You keep that. I'll tell you when to move.
Okay.
Every time I touch one of them things, they quit. This is some pictures from our farm, and our goal is to have a living root in the ground 365 days a year, or as close to it as we can. We actually started strip tilling 20 years ago. Brian Steen from Jackson, Minnesota was the guy that told me, Jerry, you gotta try this strip till, and I had this stupid look on my face because I didn't know what strip till was. But he explained they put the fertilizer just below the corn plant, and it is work ground, yeah, probably only 6 inches wide. But he said you get a little yield. Not really, I gotta try it. It took me 3 years to convince myself to go strip till on our corn, and at the same time we went no-till on our soybean. Let's go to the next slide. Now I do this every year because I talk to a lot of people. These are actually the custom rates from Iowa. They print them every year. These are the average prices, and I compare them to conventional tillage. The person doing conventional tillage, you have disc chiseling at $18.50 an acre, anhydrous injected with a toolbar $11.50, dry fertilizer applied per acre $5.45, and one pass with a field cultivator. Total $50.15 an acre. Now here's Jerry down here. Dry fertilizer strip till applied $15.55. That's $34.60 an acre difference. That's quite a bit on 1,000 acres. And that's why I started. I'm a little bit greedy. I want more money in my pocket. Now let's go to the next slide, because somebody's going to say, well, if we dropped anhydrous here years ago, we're just going with dry fertilizer. Okay, let's compare. We got disc chiseling again at $18.50. We got dry fertilizer applied $5.45. One pass with a field cultivator for a total of $38.65. Here's Jerry again, putting on his dry fertilizer with strip till at $15.55 with a difference of $23.10. Now remember, Brian told me that you get a yield bump. He said 10 bushel an acre. When I tried it for 3 years, it was always 8 to 10. So we used an average of 9 bushel. I used New Vision Cooperative's corn price as of the first of the year. That was $3.37. At 9 bushels, that's another $33.33 per acre. You add them together, that's a total of $53 an acre. That's quite a difference. All right, let's go on to the next one, the soybeans. No-tilling soybeans. Well, the conventional farmer's going to do disc chiseling at $18.50. One pass with a field cultivator $14.70. Total $33.20. The difference? $33.20. I don't do anything, I just go out and plant. Now remember, we've added cover crops. And I've been on a few farmer panels with David Brandt, and David says if you plant cereal, rye, and radishes, you're gonna gain 8 bushel an acre. Well, I always say 5 at least, 4 or 5. Let's use David's 8 bushel. Again, first of the year, price was $8.24. That's another $65.92 an acre. You add that up with that difference, that's almost $100 an acre put in your pocket. Now, I have never seen a yield loss using cover crops, always a yield gain. Now granted, sometimes it might only be 5 bushel an acre, but I've also got yield maps that show up to 20 bushel an acre difference. It's always that. Now, I know some people are gonna say, yeah, Jerry, you use this John Deere no-till drill, but I'm not gonna spend that money, I can't do that. Well, I'm gonna tell a little story. He's here today, Dave Christopher. About 3 or 4 years ago, we did a demonstration plot with the University of Minnesota. And we did corn and soybeans, we did the early interseeding in the corn, we did all kinds of mixes and everything. And they said, well, we want 30-inch rows on the beans. And I said, well, my drill only does 15 or 7.5. Well, get somebody. So I called up Dave Christopher, a friend of mine. He's been doing covers about as long as I have. And I said, Dave, they want 30-inch rows. Can I get you to plant this? Dave says, well, I don't have a no-till plant. Well, what do you have? Well, I got a John Deere 7200. And I said, well, you got row cleaners, don't you? Oh, yeah. I got row cleaners, I got spike closing wheels, I got drag chains. I said, well, bring it over. Most we'll have to do is tighten up the tension springs a little bit. So Dave came over, and Dave was setting up a tripod because he's got GPS there. And I said, Dave, what are you doing? Well, he said, I don't have markers. Well, I said, just move off the road. Yeah, but if I turn around and this is a show plot, people coming in off, they'll say, who's the dummy that planted? I said, well, Dave, I'll just count out the rows. You put your good arm on me, but just let me get out of the way. And of course, Dave pulled in and he planted the other end of the plot. And he stopped. And I'm sitting there watching. And I thought, no, pretty soon he's behind the planter. It's taking a while, so I marched down the other end of the plot. And I said, what's going on? Well, nothing, he said. I'm strip tilling for beans and this looks so good, I'm wondering why I'm strip tilling. I said, well, I don't know, it takes a lot of fuel, a lot of time, I guess that's up to you. Next year, Dave did half of his beans strip tilled, half of it no-till, without planting, doing anything. Now he does mow it. He said, well, if I don't do all this strip tilling, I got this cabin up north, I can get a little more fishing time. So let's go on to the next slide. Another reason to look at that is Grant had showed you livestock. This is a couple different guys down in my area that we sell seed to. On the right is Glenn and Rod Dix, north of Lakefield. Second year they did cover crops. They have 110 acres. Did a nice mix in there, got it growing. Took the corn off, and they brought 220 cows off pasture. And Rod fenced off, and he said, put some feed in the bunks, and they went, of course, went right to the field, it looked like a salad bar up there. And he said, I'm not feeding any cows until they eat that protein. Lo and behold, his dad got me in a restaurant in the middle of January. He said, they finally ate the field. And I said, really? He said, yeah, they came home 1st of November. January 15th, they finally ate that feed. Of course, he rotated it 3 times in that pasture, so there's a lot of reason for that. To me, if you have livestock, cover crops are a no-brainer. Let's go on to the next slide. This is coming on big down here. Jackson, Martin, Nobles, Rock County, I think we're the hog capital of the world. Strip tilling manure. They're strip tilling on 30-inch centers and planting directly on it. This happens to be Bruce Brunt by Rushmore, Minnesota. Now, Bruce grows some wheat, so he's way ahead of us. He's got peas, turnips, radishes, clovers, everything in there. He grows one heck of a corn crop. Randy Wertzman south of Rushmore, I had to be the opening speaker at the no-till conference one time, and I used his equipment. Randy says, I got the record. Since I started using cereal rye, we've gained 20 bushel an acre. And I believe him, because cereal rye is such a scavenger. It sucks up that nitrogen as it's growing. And of course, you're putting down this manure in the fall, and get a few rains, it takes it down to your soil profile. Of course, in spring comes, a few more rains, goes a little deeper. I actually sat in on a seminar by Michigan State, and the first words out of their mouth is, if you're putting down, they quoted hog manure, if you're putting that down without a cover crop, we guarantee you're losing 40 pounds of nitrogen an acre. And it's probably closer to 80 to 100. So there's reasons for all of this. Let's go on to the next one. Now these are our farms, and this is one thing we've learned. What about weed control? We no longer use any pre-emerge herbicide. Actually, last year, we had 3 fields. We were ready to interseed our corn, which we do at B4, and had the guy lined up, side dress and seed my cover, and they called the co-op, and I said, is it possible to get them fields sprayed? We were so wet, they said, there's no way. We can't get there today or tomorrow, probably not the next day. And so I told Kurt Bosman, who was doing this, I said, go ahead and seed it. And you know what? We saw a weed or two out there in the beginning, and it's probably installed. Come harvest, I'm not gonna say you couldn't find a weed in that field, but it was something that you had to find that easy. So already, if you take a look at that $53 an acre on corn difference, you drop that pre-emerge herbicide, what's that, another 15, 20 bucks? Now you're up to probably $70, $75 an acre. I want more money in my pockets. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Now you don't have to believe me, I pulled this article out of the October issue of Successful Farming, Rulam Enterprises out of Indiana, and I've met Ken Rulam. They've done no-till, strip-till now for that, and cover crops, and they actually been audited. And of course, he's showing 7 bushel gain on corn, he's got a few other things in there. But they actually figured out it's worth $57.76 an acre, with covers and no-till. Let's go on to the next one. There's another one. What about harvest? Now, I'm a big believer in flying on my cereal rye into standing beans. I want a good cover crop going when we harvest. You'll notice there's Nancy running our combine. That cover crop was 7 inches tall when we combined. We had 5 inches of rain right before bean harvest. And everybody's running around trying to find a field to go on. We ended up combining all of our fields. Actually, that particular field does have tile in there. We have some low ground on the other end of the field. Nancy said, I didn't go through that. There's water standing. Well, I didn't want to load the head up, head to another field. I said, I'm going to go try it. I actually combined through standing water. Now, it's a little creepy. I mean, the combine's rocking a little bit, made the first plant, passed, come back, second one. I thought, only one left, we're going to finish it. We did. When I came up, ready to move, put the head on the trailer, one of the guys driving the semi says, golly, you should talk to the neighbors. They got all these beans standing there and big deep tracks around there. If they'd have planted that cover crop, they'd have got it all. I said, yeah, that's right. Now there's another reason. You look at that corn that's been interseeded. We actually did a study with the Pheasants Forever a year ago. They put trail cameras around the field, and we'd call them when we're getting to the end of the field, and they came out with a drone. And they figured out we have 30% more pheasants in our fields as anybody who has conventional tillage, which I said all along. I learned this because we had a family relative who had some health problems, so I ran their combine, and I combined the field, maybe 1, 2, 3 pheasants at the end. Our fields, when we get to the last round, at least 20 to 30 pheasants. You've heard them talk about the infiltration. That's tremendous. You finally kind of learn you don't have to call that pallet machine all the time. So there's so many benefits there that I don't see why you wouldn't do it. With that, thank you very much.
So we have a couple moments before we break out to our discussion table. Jerry, you want to stay up here? And we're going to do a few group questions here. We got about 7 minutes to do that. We'll get these guys set up with a mic here. So, do we have any questions for our panelists? I'll bring the mic so everyone can hear the question. We'll start here because she's close, and I'll come back to you, Carl. Excuse me.
Yeah, so with our fall last year, say you didn't get a cover crop in last fall, and we're gonna go and plant beans this year, is there anything that you could maybe either frost seed early that would do well before beans, that you could plant beans into green, or would you recommend planting oats before the beans, or is it just too late to do anything in the spring before you're planting beans this spring?
We are going to frost seed some cereal rye, minor and seedling. Showed a presentation this winter, that he had very good success doing that, just from the fertilizer spreader. Otherwise, we will see the oats before we plant beans.
Yeah, I think there are some benefits to that cover before you plant beans even. It may even delay your bean planting some, but I think there are some real benefits there. And I'd be curious what your results are. It would be nice if you could leave a check strip out there so you know.
Yeah, I'd agree. You know, we were so wet last fall, a lot of guys that did do the drilling, you know, cover crops, didn't get them all done. This spring could be just as bad, but cereal rye is so tough, you can throw it out there and spit at it, it'll grow. But you can also do clovers or anything too. And I would look at it this way, yes, I would definitely want a cover crop. The thing's gonna be, how are you gonna do it? And it may be, you have to call an airplane to do it, you know, but the sooner the better.
Hello. So, we've been farming the way you all have been farming for the last, I don't know, 50, 100 years. How much less tiling and irrigation do you think we could get away with?
Well, certainly, you can't beat tiling. You can get by with a lot less, and I guess I learned this about 5 years ago. Brian Bigler and I were speaking up at Marshall at the college, and he said, "You ever notice you're not calling that tiling machine all the time to, oh, we gotta go a little further with this tile or that?" But you still need tile. It just does a better job when you have that. And like when Grant showed that picture, the neighbor's got water standing, and he said, "There's a tile below it." You don't see him water standing where he is. I know our watershed did a study on our farm. We had done a nitrogen and phosphorus reduction study with them, and they did a 1-hour water infiltration test at the end of the study. And that's where they keep pumping it in until the water stands on top. And I said, "Well, let me know when you're done." And they said, "Well, if it started raining right now, it could rain 11 inches in 1 hour, and you wouldn't have a drop of water stand on top." And I said, "Go across to the neighbors and try it where they do conventional tillage." And he said, "No, we won't do that, but we did do it on the farm before we came here. And to be honest, we waited an hour and we didn't even get an inch of water in the ground." So when you do conventional tillage, you break up that soil structure, and then it gets wet, it just seals up.
I think one of the aha moments for me is I went out to a field day over at Grant's, it was probably 3 or 4 years ago. And the night before, there was, it had to be about a 6-inch rain or something that night as we were driving out to Grant's place. And then we did the water infiltration study on Grant's field. And across the road, there were some large ponds in the neighboring fields. And I knew I had ponds at home as well. And that was a real eye-opener for me. And so another reason that Matthew and I have been more active with the cover crops, and what we're finding is we're adding more tile. We're doing more pattern tiling, but we're taking out just about every intake that we can. And we're getting by with that. And for me, if you think about your bathtub, you got a drain there, you open that up and everything runs out. Now, either way, you want your water to go away so you can farm, but wouldn't you rather have it percolate down through the soil and keep some of it, and the excess maybe go out the bottom through a pipe rather than run it across the surface to a tile intake? And so that's our rationale on the tiling. You know, maybe we're still going overboard on the tiling, I don't know, but that's our approach.
We have pretty rolly hills. We have a tile line at the bottom of everything that we had trouble with over the last 100 years. But there's only one tile line. We have not pattern tiled anything. John and I were fortunate enough to figure this out as pattern tiling was happening. And we won't do it. We have no reason to. On our farm, the last 3 years, we've had 36, 38, and this year 44 inches of rain. Until September of this year, we have 2 tile lines on our farm that did not run because we were putting the water in where it needs to be, and it's not even getting to those tile lines. We've done a tremendous amount of testing with Kent and other guys here On water infiltration rates, we're at 12 to 30 inches of water infiltration rate per hour. So if we're putting it on the hill where it needs to be, we don't need the tile at the bottom of the hill or the side of the hill.
Another quick question. Yes, sir.
Winter grazing, how long is your hay feeding season for the cow herd in a normal year and then in a winter with snow cover like this?
In a normal year, we graze until January, sometimes into February. Last year, we were in February. This year, with all the rain we had 160 acres of pasture we couldn't use most of the year. We grazed cover crops that were supposed to be hayed and used for winter grazing. We started feeding in the end of November of the year. It's what we had to do because Mother Nature just whacked us.
So there's time for more questions because Jerry has something. Yeah. Okay, all right. Yep. There's going to be time to ask each of the producers more questions. They're each going to be seated at one of the round tables in the back, so if we could make room for them to squeeze in. We're going to our discussion tables and a break for the next 45 minutes. Plus the NRCS will be running their wind erosion simulator out here in the lobby area. So we will be doing that for the next 45 minutes here. So let's give a big round of applause to our panel panelists.
So we're going to ask Grant, would you head over to the far